In this video, we'll prepare a Week 14 cash and GPP lineup for the main slate for FanDuel, and it's coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lay.
And I'm Michael Wiley, and we're the Fantasy Football Consultants.
Michael, I have to extend some congratulations to you. Let's put the leaderboard for our FFC contest with our highest commenters. I finished second. I thought I might be able to finish first and win the first FanDuel, but no, there's this Michael Wiley guy who took it from me. But you and the rest of us are going to come after you this week. This is a contest that we do for 3 weeks for our top commenters. But let's talk about something I think that is everybody wants to hear about, which is what's our opinion of the Week 14 slate. We have a cash and a GPP lineup. Let's start with the cash lineup. And Michael, I think the guy to start off with to attack is Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry has to be happy to see Jacksonville Jaguars on the schedule this week. He has just dominated them over the last 6 games, going back a few years now. He's averaged 22 carries, 145 yards, and 2 TDs. Pure domination by Derrick Henry. Now, here's the thing with Henry. He's coming off a terrible game. Why did he do so terrible? He was game scripted out. Can't have that happen. So you have to ask yourself, in this game in which Tennessee is at home, in my humble opinion, the far better team over Jacksonville, the lines makers have them a 3.5-point favorite. Do you think that Tennessee is going to be ahead in most of this game? I do. I think that's the recipe for success for Derrick Henry.
Yeah, very much agree with what he has done against Jacksonville, with what he does at the end of the season. So, Eric, we got to save a few dollars with the next spot, but we're not going to go down too much because this is FanDuel and our running backs are super important to us. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick on the worst rush defense in the league, pick on the Houston Texans. And Tony Pollard's a few $100 less than Zeke here, so we're going to go with Tony Pollard, who is producing both in the run game and more so in the pass game, equal or better to Zeke. So love the fact that he's a little bit cheaper. I know Zeke's getting a little bit heavier usage, but Pollard is getting almost 100 yards a game averaging almost 100 yards a game over the last several games, and certainly is getting involved in the passing game. This Houston defense is atrocious. The Dallas defense is fantastic, which means Dallas is going to be playing from ahead. And this two-headed running back monster is something that nobody wants to face right now. I know it's kind of tempting to get Justin Jefferson in there, given the matchup and his counterpart, or going on from the other side, Amon-St. Brown, but they're just too expensive. So we're going to go down a few thousand or a couple $1,000 from there. And we're going to get a guy in the lineup who's the clear number one for the Cleveland Browns, Amari Cooper. I know Cincinnati looks to be a little bit tougher on the pass, but Amari Cooper has had some really big games this year. This last couple of weeks, there was a couple of bad drops, but he's the clear number one. I think Deshaun Watson is going to have kicked off some rust, and his defense isn't going to score 3 touchdowns this week, which means he's going to be probably coming from behind a little bit. And so they can only do so much in the run against this really good Cincinnati team right now. So Amari Cooper is going to benefit greatly, and this $7,300 price tag is looking nice.
I like it, but we've now picked 3 guys that are 7,300 or more. Yeah, I picked one who's a lot more than 7,300. So my responsibility then to this lineup is to save money, and I will save it at both of the next 2 spots with 2 players who share the same name at 6,200. First, there's Gabe Davis, and at 5,700. There's Corey Davis. So let's break this down. First of all, with Corey Davis, this is again what I call the White effect, right? Mike White allows a much bigger pie with the New York Jets. If you're not a big Davis fan, I've got a great pivot for you. A pivot is DJ Shark. DJ Shark is now in the lineup for Detroit. He is someone who is starting alongside Amon-Ra St. Brown. And remember, TJ Hawkinson is no longer on Detroit, which gives more opportunities for everybody else. And I really like DJ Shark facing a Minnesota Viking. All right, let's talk a little bit about Gabe Davis. Now, I am going to tell you that if value comes up later, this might be the player that I switch out. I like Gabe Davis, but I kind of like him more in a GPP because he can have a low floor, but he has a tremendous ceiling, right?
Yeah, part of what we're doing here is we're saying Sauce Gardner is going to spend a fair amount of time on Stephon Diggs. You know that he may not travel as much as some defensive backs do, but he will some. And Stephon Diggs is really been giving fits to teams, and I think the Jets are going to have to try and neutralize that. And Sauce Gardner is the best chance for that, which means Josh Allen's going to have to look elsewhere. And Gabe Davis, as we saw early in the season, can really put up some big points.
Well said, Michael.
So we're talking about Josh Allen a little bit. Well, I think that's part of the reason we've been spending down a little bit. We really want to get him in the lineup. So let's go to the quarterback position. He is the most expensive quarterback, or second. I guess he's second most expensive. He and Jalen Hurts. He hasn't necessarily been using his legs as much in the last couple of games as he has in prior games, but this game's an important game for them. They're still right there with the Dolphins in terms of leading the division. And if the Jets win this game, all of a sudden it's going to be looking a little bit more dicey for the Buffalo Bills to not only win this division, but get the number one seed that they're really important. It's really important for them to get, or anyone to get for that matter, because of the bye. So I think Josh Allen will use his legs a little more this week.
Yeah, don't overthink this too much, folks. In cash games, you want a high floor, and no one gives you that more than Josh Allen. The fact that and the game environment is so good as a home favorite, 9.5 points, a ridiculously high 27 implied total. And I think the fact that he has been, for him, Michael, struggling in 2 of the last 3 games, we actually get a pretty reasonable $8,700 price.
So Eric, obviously we're paying up at the quarterback position, even though we like this price tag for Josh Allen because of the floor. Part of that's because some of the guys that are $1,000 or less are just not that appealing for anywhere near the floor that some of the guys at the top have. But if you really want to try and squeeze out a little more juice at the wide receiver spot, or even sneak in a better guy at the running back position, and we'll get to the flex and tight end here in just a minute. We got a couple of things to look at. Really just one. Go all the way down to Brock Purdy. He's at $6,500. Some say he's Mr. Irrelevant because that's when he got picked in the draft. Well, he's relevant now because the Niners have nowhere else to go. He looked pretty good this last week. Gives a ton of weapons for Brock Purdy, especially with McCaffrey coming out of the backfield and having opportunities with the dump off, or Deebo Samuel similarly. So I think in order for the Niners to keep up this nice little run that they have going, Purdy's going to have to be involved in the passing game. And look, he's $2,200. Is that $3,200? No, $2,200. I wish it was $3,200. $2,200 less than Josh Allen opens up some dollars elsewhere.
What about tight end, Michael?
Yeah, so we got to save a lot of money. Travis Kelce is by far the best option at the tight end position. It's amazing to see Mark Andrews and TJ Hawkinson so close to him in price. We don't even want to flirt with some of those guys. And then the next group on the list is just not as exciting, especially with Garoppolo going down. I'm a little nervous with George Kittle. I know he had a couple good weeks in there. So we're going to go down a few $100s more beyond the guys on the list here. And we're going to go to Greg Dulcich at $5,400. I think as exciting and interesting as anyone else near this price tag, partly because Denver is going to be playing from behind in this game. Also because it appears that he's Russell Wilson's kind of go-to guy, number one guy right now. And partly because that's just how Russell Wilson has been historically, but partly because this is just an athlete. He is a stud. He's young. He's fast. He's got great hands. And he had, he was 6 of 8 this last week for 85 yards. He's had a couple of weeks in that range. I think he's got a pretty nice floor. I know he had 2 catches and 1 catch 2 out of the last 4 weeks, but other than that, he's produced pretty nicely. And for, sometimes tight ends don't get anything. Knox got 0 this last week. Dulcich is always producing.
Yeah, just needs to do something about that hair. I just
you like that? It looks like
I do not like that. But you know what I like? I like the fact that he led the Broncos in receptions, targets, and yards last week. And this week, facing Kansas City, the pie is going to be bigger because the Denver defense, which is good and very good this year, they're not going to stop Kansas City. It's going to force the Denver offense to open up a little bit and throw the ball. And for once, I think we're actually going to see hopefully a good passing day out of Russell Wilson. Where do we want to go at the flex spot, Michael?
Well, Eric, again, here we are in FanDuel. In FanDuel, we really like to get running backs in. That's where we are trying to put most of our dollars this week. We also went with an expensive quarterback. But we can save a few dollars and still get a running back who's participating both as the lead back, really the number one guy in terms of carries, but also getting heavily involved in the passing game. And that's Miles Sanders, who's having a really nice season this year, averaging 13.5 fantasy points a game, going up against a rush defense that is, has given up some yards. And of course, Jalen Hurts gets involved heavily in the running game. But they're going to want to try and preserve him as much as possible for the playoffs now that they're doing a pretty good job solidifying themselves as the number one. The rest of their season schedule, other than the Cowboys, looks pretty good.
$3,100 left for a defense. Who are we going to pick? Well, I'll tell you who we're not going to pick. We're not going to pick the Houston Texans. So that means that we get the Detroit Lions. It's not often, Michael, that you have a defense that's the second lowest who's actually a home favorite. The Lions are favored over the Minnesota defense. And the Lions, if you look at the last 5 games, the defense actually has put up fantasy points. So for a punt defense, I do like this. All right, so that is our cash lineup, whether you want to go with Davis or Shark. Let's turn to GPP. So our first stack is Jared Goff passing to DJ Shark, taking advantage of the Minnesota defense's worst pass defense ranking and running it back with probably the most talented wide receiver in the land, Justin Jefferson, who has breakaway speed. I have another stack in here where I have Tony Pollard and Nico Collins. That works, we think, because the Dallas Cowboys are 17-point favorites at home. So game script wise, they should be well ahead. Pollard should get a lot of carries, even though he's sharing with Zeke Elliott. And Houston's going to be way behind. So they're going to be passing, and it should be going to Nico Collins, who we see as the new number 1 wide receiver. The only other guy that we haven't already talked about in this lineup is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And boy, oh boy, do I like the Pittsburgh Steelers here at only $3,800. They are a home favorite, and they are just a better defense with TJ Watt back. And it looks like at the time of filming that Lamar Jackson, who has a sprain in his knee, is not going to play this upcoming week. So they're going to get to face a backup quarterback in Huntley. What do you think about this GPP lineup, Michael?
Yeah, no, I like the upside here. This is what we're going for in GPP. We want some correlation. We want some, high upside. I think you got that, especially by attacking that Detroit-Minnesota game.
Michael and I broke down the main slate for DraftKings in a separate video. We'll put that on the screen, and also an NFL DFS video we think you'll enjoy. Until next time, when we take on Week 15, take care, everybody.